Calvin, you caught me slipping. What's going on, guys? My name's Rob. Calvin McChesney is behind the edits, and today we have an absolute banger for you guys. Vincenzo Iannuzzo has joined me today for a sit-down discussion. We talked about his story on his way to becoming a professional fighter, his goals. This became an incredible conversation about mindset. It became an incredible discussion on just his journey and his path and all the lessons he's learned along the way. I know that I'm super fired up from this discussion. It's a Sunday night right now. It's 8:30 at night. We just finished and I am fired up. I'm so excited for you guys to hear this one. Please, if you enjoy it, all I ask is that you share it with somebody that would also enjoy this story. Without further ado, I want you guys to get right into these gems. This is free coffee. Thank you for listening. Let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Today, I am joined by the one and only most Italian person who's ever been on the pod, Vincenzo Iannuzzo. Brother, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Brother, thank you so much for doing this. I'm super excited to talk about your story, your journey, and talk about how you've gotten to where you are today. But for anyone who's not familiar with who you are, you mind giving us a little synopsis of who you are, what you do? Just give us a little bit of a rundown, because you have a real interesting sort of niche of the world that you're in.
Yeah, so I'm Vin Iannuzzo, for anyone that doesn't know me. My story, I went to Cicero North Syracuse High School, grew up there, played sports all throughout high school and everything, went to college. And when I was in college, it was my sophomore year is where I stopped playing football. And from there, I was just kind of like trying to find my way of like what I wanted to do next and kind of find my calling, if you will. And, something that I always had a passion for growing up, just something that was kind of installed in my family background was fighting. So, I made the decision one day, a couple connections happened, right at the right time. I'm sure we'll get into that later. And, fast forward to now, I'm on a journey to become a pro fighter and, got big goals with that. So that's where we're going here.
I love it, man. That's so sweet. This is so exciting because I absolutely love sitting down with people who really, we operate in very different realms. Obviously, I'm not a fighter. I'm not good at it. You have a whole different life story and everything than me. Obviously, everybody does. But what's really cool about this podcast and what I really love is anyone who's listening can pull gems and tips and like life lessons from somebody in such a different world. Obviously there's value in your story to anyone who might listen. So I'm so excited and thankful that you are taking the time to sit down. So without further ado, can I ask you, what was early childhood like? I know you said you grew up in Cicero area, right? What was early life like? Liverpool.
Thing.
Cool.
So growing up, when I was young, like I said, I was probably around, probably around 3 or 4. My dad was a big time karate fighter back in the day. So as soon as I was able to kind of walk and start, being coordinated, I was put into that. So growing up, it was very structured and very like disciplined. Those were a lot of the values that were kind of, given to me at an early age, especially coming from that karate background, traditional Kempo karate. And then just being the person that my dad was, had a lot of structure and everything. Same with my mom. And then, just both of them just pushed me, to be as involved in any type of athletics that I was interested in. So whether it was karate, I started baseball when I was really young too. So growing up, it was just, I had a lot of support from the both of them. They really pushed me to succeed in whatever I really wanted to try. And so, it was just, I guess you could say like experimental, just get to be involved in whatever activities I could and see where it went from there.
What did you think about karate as a young kid? Did you enjoy it? Was it just something you did? What was it like for you?
I loved it as a kid because for me, it was like I got to do it like my dad was doing, So he was my biggest idol back in the day. So any chance I got to try and, emulate him or do anything close to that, it was like the coolest opportunity for me. And I mean, it wasn't easy, and I definitely enjoyed it, but he definitely pushed me a lot too. So, there was still the joy for me to keep doing it, but it also, like I said, from an early age, I learned a lot of core values I still hang with me today. So
Absolutely. Was the goal always, even as a young kid, professional athlete, or were there other things along the way? What was did you always kind of have that long-term mindset?
yeah, well, 100%. When I was younger, my mom would always ask me, what do you want to do when you're older? And, I never wanted to be, like a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that. It was always, I want to be a pro baseball player.
Hmm.
Okay, well, what do you want to do if that doesn't work out? I'll play football then. If that doesn't work out, all right, I'll play basketball. And the list went on and on. So, from a very early age, that's really what I wanted to do from the very beginning. So,
I love it, man. I think that's something that everyone can kind of connect with, or at least young athletes. Because like for me, I grew up, I played basketball, baseball, soccer. I played a bunch of different stuff, and no matter what I was doing, I always wanted to be pro. You know what I mean? I always
yep.
dreamed of being on the big field and on the big stage or whatnot. And for so many people, it's really not in the cards.
Mhm.
Did you ever, even though you knew you wanted to, was there moments where you were like, all right, maybe I'm not going to be a professional NBA player, maybe I'm not going to be a professional baseball player, um, or were you always just like, I'm doing it, I'm going to make it happen?
So it was like the sport would always kind of change depending on like what I was into. So for a long time, it was baseball. Temporarily, I played basketball for a little bit, but I never really got into that as much. But then as I went through school, football started becoming more and more of an interest for me. So the gear kind of shifted towards that. I wanted to see how far I could go with football. I played in college for 2 years. And then when I stopped playing, it was, I was still trying to find my way, like I kind of mentioned earlier. And for me, it was like, I was doing the school thing and I was trying to figure out, what I wanted to do for a career. And I kind of changed majors a couple of times trying to figure it out. And I kind of just realized, I was like, I have some blessings that I have, as far as athletically. I don't want to just let these go to waste. I gotta do something with my life that I feel is meaningful to me, and that's not a knock against anyone that, doesn't want to pursue athletics. But so for me, I started looking around to see where I could get involved in some type of fighting, whether it was, boxing, jujitsu, etc. And somehow, actually, my old karate instructor, who, besides my dad, I ran into him at the mall around this time, and I hadn't seen him for had to have been at least like 15 years, maybe. And we saw each other and we just immediately, I literally jumped out of line at the food court to go over and talk to him and kind of explain to him what I was looking to do. And he was like, well, I just left, Iannuzzo's and opened up my own place. So if you're interested in doing that, why don't you, come in and try that? So that's kind of how we got the ball rolling with that. Went there and started it up. And just, I fell in love with it right off the jump, and knew that's what I wanted to do. I want to talk about something you said, though. You mentioned like, what's in the cards for most people and stuff. And that's one thing that like, I think that we as like a society need to do better on, because so many kids, like you said, they grow up and they want to be a pro athlete. They want to be a professional, and they fall into this idea of like what's realistic at a certain age. Right. And I think that that's kind of a dangerous thing, because if we all kind of shifted our gear focus and thought in that realistic way, like no one's going to accomplish anything. You came up with this idea of starting the podcast, right? Obviously you had to take action, get it done. You could have stopped and been like, people might not watch it. What are the chances that it blows up or anything like that, right? But if we always think like that, nothing will ever get done. So I just wish that people and parents and teachers would kind of understand that, there is a possibility for a long-term career in athletics if you support children the right way and kind of guide them. Like, it is doable, and it's not easy, but it's definitely not far-fetched, even for someone who's not always a star athlete, if they really dedicate themselves to it and it's truly what they see themselves doing, I think it's something that can definitely be, achieved.
Dude, that's amazing. And I think it's so true, right? I mean, anyone who achieves anything out of the ordinary, they got to kind of be thinking like that, like what can I actually do? Not realistically what's in the cards for me, but
Yeah.
there's professional athletes every day that are defying the odds, right? Doing things that no one thought they could do, right? And making things happen. What do you think, if I can go off that just a little bit,
Yeah, absolutely.
what do you think led to you having that sort of a mindset? Because I think so many people just get stuck in the, like you said, and like I said, what's in the cards for me? What's realistic for me? Not what can I achieve? What can I do? How do you have that mindset? How did that develop in you?
I would have to say it's got to go back to the influence my dad had on me at a young age. Like I said, he always pushed me to never be satisfied with just good enough. And there were times I'd be in class, I'd go through a whole class, and I'd be more advanced than the other students my level, and he would take me aside after class and make me go through a whole nother class one-on-one with him. So I learned to never satisfy for anything less than what you can really strive for. And I think that's just carried on throughout. And, obviously you have to be realistic with yourself about, what you can do and stuff. But if you have a passion for something, a true passion, you'll find a way to improve on it and kind of go with that. So I think I would just have to say, the influence my dad had on me growing up, that's where that mindset was kind of created. And it's just kind of carried with me through anything that I've done. And, also part of the fact that, I wanted to be like him. So growing up, it was, if my dad could do it, like I want to do it just like him. So it's kind of been like almost like chasing his legacy, so to speak. So
That's amazing. What do you do? I don't know how to ask this question with it potentially coming off wrong, but do you ever have doubts about your journey and about your ability? And how do you work on maintaining that mindset that you can achieve and that you can do things? Do you have any thoughts on that?
so I never had doubts about it. I get what you're saying though. I don't take it the wrong way at all. I don't ever doubt it. There are times where I'll get down on myself. Just the type of athlete I am and the way I go about things, I'm very hard on myself. And I'm the type of person that I want to get things right and be able to execute it perfectly right away, even if it's, the first time I've learned it. So I don't doubt myself, but I do get down on myself and get real hard about it. But then, you have to just take a step back and remind yourself that, that's part of the journey, part of the process is you'll never understand where you truly stand unless you know where you're kind of falling short at the moment. And then I think that also comes back into coaching too. You got to be able to have the right people around you, the right team around you to kind of, know how your athlete's going to work and how they're kind of getting frustrated and be able to rein them back in and keep them focused and remind them that, just because it's not going well right now doesn't mean that everything else is going to keep going the same way.
Yeah, man, I love that. And I think that, if I can speak, I'm not an athlete in my day-to-day work, but let's talk about like business for a second. In business,
Yeah.
if you're not, and this is true for sports, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're not failing every once in a while and you're not coming up short every once in a while, you're not even shooting high enough. You're not even trying to achieve enough. I mean, am I missing the mark?
Oh, no, you're spot on. That's 100% correct. I'm actually really glad you said that because I think the most important thing, and when I was younger, I wouldn't have agreed with it, but now you need to experience that sense of being humbled in a way because it just helps you realize where you're at. And if you can see the bigger picture and you have the right mindset, you'll realize what you have to do to move forward. So it may be a half step back, but it puts you on a completely different path and opens another door. And same for like business, like you're saying, you know, the statistics don't lie, how many businesses that people try and create fail at first. And the ones who really want to do it, it ends up being successful for them. So I think you're spot on with that. And it's something that we all need to embrace and get comfortable with and realize that, fucking up is not the end of the world. And it's something that can actually be a great experience for you.
one of the best things I ever heard was there's a natural law that is fact. And if you want something bad enough, you will either achieve it or die trying, and there's no other options. And that's kind of how I've began to operate, is like, if I really want it, I'll either eventually die without having gotten it, or I will get it. So I'm going to try to get it. You know what I mean? Like, because
Exactly.
if you can achieve anything, what would you try to achieve? How much how much are you doing? Because I kind of saw you post a little bit about it. You seem to be giving back and trying to inspire some kids now and help them, right?
Yep.
What kind? And I'm really kind of bouncing around. I apologize, but now that
Not
we're on
like
this, what what's that like? What does that do for you? Because I know you touched on it just a touch.
So for me, I mean, where I train, it's not your typical MMA atmosphere, if you will. There's a time and a place where it gets, to that intensity and that kind of more adult kind of grit and grind, but it's still a karate school that has a lot of children coming in and out of those doors on a daily basis. And so, there's so many young kids of different ages, different backgrounds, and they see what I'm doing, and a lot of them are, their class is ending as I'm warming up, or their class might be starting, when mine's finishing. So they see what we're doing, and for me, I just want to lead by example because, like I said, I had my dad to look up to when I was younger for a little bit. When he passed, it was kind of, okay, who do I kind of look up to now? That was, my idol. So I always keep in the back of my mind, if these kids have something similar like that, who can be someone they can look up to? And I just want to kind of lead by example and be a figure for them that is not some unapproachable person, someone that they can relate to, someone they can say they've experienced, conversations with, and just kind of have that influence, because you never know what that kid needs. And, you can make the difference between them, you know, going down one path or the other. And I just think it's important to, try and be there for the youth and kind of lead by example so they're not, you know, going astray, if you will.
Absolutely, man. I'm sorry to hear that your dad passed away. I was unaware.
Oh no, it's all good, man.
Um, what was that experience like? If you don't mind touching on it, what was it like going through that, and how has that impacted your day to day?
I mean, it was definitely tough. So I was 10 years old when it happened. My brother was 5. So, we were real young. It was kind of just shocking. He wasn't sick. It wasn't something we could prepare for. Even at that age, you can never really prepare for something like that. So it was tough. And, growing up, there were a lot of things that, were more challenging. But what's always been a big help is, I've always tried to think of, what would he want me to do? What would he think of what I'm doing now? Am I pleasing him? Am I doing the right things? And then also obviously the influence my mom had. And so especially now as I get older and I mature and, I hear stories of how I'm very similar to him and whatnot. I kind of just take it as kind of like a badge of honor. And so I try and live my life while honoring his legacy, but also trying to create my own at the same time. And so I think that's what kind of helps me get through things and helps me push forward and do what I do. So
Absolutely. I mean, what you're doing, it's not an easy path, man. It's very difficult, but it seems like you're doing a fantastic job of honoring that legacy and really giving when, it seems like you're giving way more than you're trying to take, which is incredible. And, you know, I wish you all the best.
yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
What if I can take it back a little bit, we were talking about your journey when you were in college and getting your education. You said you kind of bounced around a little bit between different majors. What were some things that you thought you might want to do and that you tried?
So when I first went to college, going in as a freshman, the plan was to do physical therapy. The reason I wanted to do physical therapy is because I injured my knee senior year of high school with football, and that was, like I said, I wanted to pursue football as long as possible. So for me, going through that, it really sucked, and so I wanted to find a way, to help athletes that went through a similar experience. So I was like, okay, I'll do physical therapy, and then I enrolled in college and was, starting to take all the freshman courses and stuff. They changed the criteria, for how long you had to be in school for PT and whatnot. So I was never really a big school person. I'll be honest with you. I went to college to play football. So for me, I was like, well, I don't know if I want to do that. So then kind of bounced around and I was like, well, if I do want to go for PT and it's going to be that long, I might as well do something that, I might make a little bit more. So I was like, maybe I'll do, physician's assistant. And then the more and more I started taking courses for it, I was like, I'm really just not into it. This is not something I really want to do. So then I switched to exercise science and then eventually switched to kinesiology, which is what I ended up graduating with. So kind of bounced around with that. And, it was always just, all right, I'm going to get this done. So I have a backup plan for when, I retire one day. So
That's awesome. What going through school, getting your education, what are your thoughts on college, and especially college when you're not exactly sure what you want to do?
that's a tough one. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's so many kids that benefit from college. There's so many kids that, go in, they do great and they know what they want to do off the bat and they have, great college academic career. They go on to do great things. They achieve, excellent honors and all these amazing things. I think really ultimately it just comes down to you have to I think it's better to always have a plan. I think a lot of kids get stuck in that field of, well, I don't really know what I want to do. Oh, we're losing connection again.
I can hear you.
Okay. So, I think they get stuck in that realm of, I'm not really sure what to do. And I think part of that ties into what we talked about earlier. I think, so many kids get a voice in their ear and they kind of change paths and they go to college for something that maybe someone else kind of wants them to do versus what they truly want to do. So I think just, when you're in high school, you really have to be honest with yourself about what you want to do, because you don't necessarily need college to be successful. In some fields you do, some fields I personally believe that you don't. And, whatever path you decide is ultimately your decision. But I just think, as long as it's something that you're happy doing and that you can see yourself doing long term, then, whether you go to college or not, that's kind of, who cares at that point,
Mm-hmm. Going through and now being on the journey that you're on, are you happy you have your degree, or do you wish you hadn't gone through that process?
Uh, it's kind of like a two-faced answer. Like I kind of am because I work at a gym right now for sports performance training and personal training. So it's allowed me to do that and have more knowledge in that field. But also at the same time, like when I was in school and fights were going on before COVID and everything, it limited the amount of time I had training. So I was only I'd go home every single weekend, get my 3 days in and then do, all my strength conditioning on my own at school. So long term, there were some upsides. For me, it probably would have helped me more to not be there. But, hindsight's always, at the end of the day, you kind of figure it out. And there are definitely some benefits to it. But, me personally, I love training and getting ready for everything that I'm doing. So my biased answer, if you will, would be, I probably wouldn't have gone if I had gotten into this a little bit sooner.
Mm-hmm. No, I respect that, and honestly, I understand. I graduated in December. From
Congratulations,
one.
man. That's awesome.
Thank you, thank you. But the whole time I was in it, I watched friends and people I knew, kind of in my field, biz devs, in their early 20s, kind of achieve so much and like work so hard and have that time to grind. And I was sitting in a room studying things that really weren't applicable, or were just part of getting that piece of paper.
Exactly.
So it was extremely difficult, but looking back, like, sure, if everything hits the fan, it'll be great to be able to get a job or like make a little bit more money because I have the degree. But
Absolutely.
it would have been really nice to be, grinding and working hard and like getting after my goals during that time. But
Absolutely.
I think it also does kind of motivate you too, because you kind of know like, all right, I don't want to do something else and get stuck. I don't know, that maybe that's just me, but I definitely felt like, all right, now I'm out. I'm gonna work as hard as I possibly can to not get stuck in like a 9 to 5 or have to go back to school or anything like that.
Exactly. And I mean, like you said, that's your own experience that you went through, and it's put you down the path that you're on now. So obviously it worked out in some shape or form.
Hmm.
Could you have, like you said, worked a little bit more and had that more in-field experience? Sure, but you made the best of it. You have what motivates you from that experience. So it works out for you. You know what I'm saying? I don't want people to think I'm saying, don't go to college. If you go to college, you're a fool. Just, there's upsides to both, which I don't think a lot of people realize. And, it sounds like we kind of have a similar experience. Once
Hmm.
we finished, it was kind of like, all right, now is my opportunity. Now I really get to do what I want to do. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So you get your degree and you start working towards how was it in school or was it post school that you really decided? No, you said in school you were taking trips back to train and work towards, and you realized that you wanted to be a professional fighter?
yeah, so from the very first time I walked in his doors, even before I, you know, even actually started, I want to
Hmm.
be a pro fighter. And,
Gotcha.
I said I want to be in the UFC. I want to be a UFC world champion. I want to win 3 belts in 3 weight classes. I want to do all these great things. I want to retire pound for pound greatest before I ever walked in the doors. And, people have things to say about that. Oh, you're cocky. Oh, you're this, you're that.
Yep.
To me, I don't see it as cocky. To me, I see it as I set the bar for where I want to be. Now I have to back it up. I got to support my claims. I got to do what I got to do to get to where I said I want to be. So for me, that's why when I was at school, I had fights scheduled during the times I was at school. So I was like, I got to stay on track for what I want to do. So I'll go to school all week. As soon as I'm out of class on Friday, I'm heading home to training Friday night, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, going back to school, and just to do whatever I could to kind of keep the ball rolling while getting the degree, just to get it out of the way. So
What was it like hopping in the ring for the first time? What was that like? Tell me about that. That seems crazy, man.
it was the most exhilarating experience I've ever had in my life. So, you know, anybody who has had any type of experience in athletics, they always have those visualizations of certain moments, the big shot at the end of a game, stuff like that. Until you're actually in that moment, you can't really prepare for what it's going to feel like. And when I got the call and got the confirmation for the first fight, whatever, my adrenaline was kicking, everything was going. And then getting there, it just felt so surreal, but also so realistic and what I envisioned at the same time. And then just every second, every minute that the fight gets closer and closer, you just start dialing in more and more. And for me, the moment that did it is when the doors opened for me to walk out. It was just like, it's time to go, man. Like, this is it. Let's go and get it. And as soon as I walked out, I made eye contact with, my mom, my girlfriend, my best friend, all the people there to watch. And they just jumped out of their chairs. And for me, I was like, oh yeah, like this is exactly how I thought it would be times 10.
Hmm.
And so just the atmosphere is crazy, when fans were there screaming and yelling, your music's blaring, the lights are going, and you're ready to get in there and go to war. So it's a mixture of feelings, but for me, it was just like, I felt so comfortable, but also had like the realization of everything going on around me was like just unbelievable. So
Dude, I feel like as a high achiever, and tell me if I'm misspeaking, you almost come to expect like, yup, like it's about time, like I'm here, like let's do this thing. Was that true for you?
yeah, absolutely. And again, people are gonna think what they want about that, but it's not that I'm doing these things because I just think I'm this.
Hmm.
I prepare for this. This is where I want to be. So this is where I'm going to push myself to be. So, that's just the way it goes. Like you said, you envision where you want to go, and when you get there, because you're so mentally prepared for it, you're just ready to conquer and just dominate in whatever field it is, whether it's business, art, music. Think about a musician. They go on stage, they've been practicing their whole life, and they finally get to perform in front of that huge crowd. Like, I'm sure some people are nervous, but I'm sure there's a bunch of artists that are like, this is it. It's time to do what I do. And you just kind of thrive in it. You get in that flow state and you just kind of do everything you've prepared for. So
Yeah, and to tie that lesson into business, like I can tell you that there's been times where I've said things or made claims about what I'm going to achieve as me and as Rob Riley, right? And I've offended people with the amount of confidence, they take very incorrectly. They take as arrogance, they take as ignorance. But in reality, I understand the mountain that's in front of me. And I see it being so massive, but I'm like, this is just something I believe in myself to be able to achieve, and I'm not going to stop until I do. But that's really come off wrong with people that don't think like that. There's people that just can't comprehend the fact that you can really truly believe you can do anything if you actually just set your mind to it. And I truly believe that anyone can do anything they want to do if they fully commit to it. You know what I mean? Like I said earlier, you're either going to achieve it or you're going to die trying.
Yep.
You get a lot, I mean, you said it earlier. It's dude, I don't know. I think that mindset, it's so important, and there's so much value to pull from that. So,
I think that's one thing that people, whether it's athletics, business, whatever it is, that's the most uncommonly trained part of your body is your mind. And like you said, people will say, oh, that's arrogant. Look at the mountain example you use. Look at how tall that mountain is. How are you going to climb that? Well, those people are going to be the ones that walk away. You're going to be the one that starts climbing up. And they'll be at the bottom critiquing you when you slide a little bit, when you stumble. But then you get to the top, and they're going to be the ones at the bottom. And it's all because they didn't have it here. You had the mindset to go after it. And that's really just what sets you apart in all aspects. And I think we all need to train our mindset more, because that's the first thing that goes in all aspects before anything else does.
I completely agree, man. And I don't know if tell me if this is true. I would imagine it's obviously true, but in business, all the top performers in business, or generally most of the top performers in business, spend a lot of time training their mind. I would imagine that in fighting, like, so much of that has got to be mental, right?
Oh, so much more. And, people see the physical capabilities. They think, power, speed, movement, all this stuff, which
Hmm.
obviously plays a factor. But what happens when you face someone with more experience, or you face someone that might be faster than you, whatever the case is, what's going to set you apart? You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And when it gets down to that, say it's the last 10 seconds of a fight and it's a barn burner and you just got to dig down deep and you got to go to that real dark place. Who's more comfortable when it's dark like that? Can you find that light in the darkness, or are you just going to put the blanket over your head and hide from it? That's really what it comes down to. It's just so many people, anybody can do things physically and, learn a skill and a craft, but to be able to have it up here when things get challenging, to be able to persevere through any type of adversity, any hardship, that's what really sets the people apart. Like you were saying, the top people in business, the top athletes in the world, like Tom Brady. There's so many guys faster than him and stuff like that. That dude's got it up here, and that's why he's so much farther ahead. So, I think you nailed it perfectly. That's the deciding factor of what gets people to where they want to be.
What do you what are your thoughts on here's let me preface this question. I've seen the pictures of you in the ring, right? You crushing it. But I've also seen the pictures of you training and working hard. I feel like a lot of people really focus on that in the ring moment, right? That KO moment. What are your thoughts on that versus like training? Like how much of what you've achieved have you trained for versus like how much were you born with?
So I think everyone's born, obviously, if you get down to the biological stuff with genetics and stuff like that, anyone's born with a certain set of um, genetics towards something. Some people have more fast twitch, some people have slow twitch, whatever the case is. But whether you choose to pursue those or not, that's kind of up to you. So you can be born with all the skill and potential in the world, but what do you do to reach that potential? You know, if you're a talented artist, you know, you just have this great eye for art and beauty and a steady hand to draw it. You know, what do you do for that? Do you just, oh, I'll just, I'll draw. My drawings are good. People like them. I'm happy with that. Or do you go and you practice and you try and get them better and make your each drawing more realistic? Um, Same thing goes with, me for fighting. Obviously, I was born with good genetics. My dad was a, great athlete. My mom was a good athlete, but I still had to put in the work. And when it comes to focusing on like the in the ring moment versus the training, when you're in the ring, that's a reflection of what you did in training. So if you're not enjoying and grinding and embracing the entire process of training, that in the ring moment is going to reflect all of that. And I think the biggest thing that makes people fall short, they start the journey and they get to that first plateau and they fall off, is because they get caught up in those moments. They experience it a little bit and that's all they want. They get that little bit of satisfaction and the complacency sets in. It's especially in fighting, there is always room to improve. There's always more things you have to learn. There's always new techniques, new styles. So if you're ever satisfied in the world of fighting and combat sports, you're already behind the ball. So you really have to focus on what you're doing prior to that in the ring moment. And then when you get to that moment, that's your time to shine and show everything that you've done until that point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. And I think also, if you don't prepare, you're gonna get punched in the face. Like
Exactly.
that. It's
Like,
also like,
I don't want to try and make it sound like I think my sport's better than any other sport, because it's not. It's just my preference of it. But football, there's 10 other guys in the field. If you mess up, there's a chance that people might not notice it, right? If I mess up in the ring, man, everyone's going to see it. Everyone's going to hear it. The crowd's going to react to it. My opponent's going to see it. He's going to hear it. And it really won't go unnoticed. So that spotlight's right on you. It's, you don't have anyone in there to, get your back. Football, you have a safety over the top. If you blow your coverage, he might be able to bail you out. If I drop my hands, I don't have a guy stepping in blocking for me, man. From that point on, it's all in preparation. You have to be obsessed with the preparation up until that point. So
what are you actively doing to train yourself? Are you doing anything different than the typical stuff? Do you spend any time doing anything out of the ordinary that you think helps you?
I mean, obviously, my training schedule, I train a lot. I train twice a day, 6 days a week. But I'm sure there's other fighters out there, other athletes out there that are grinding in the gym, physically doing stuff like that. For me, I think what separates me is I'm constantly wanting to learn, constantly striving to get better. And when I'm not training, I'm not at practice, I'm home watching fights, analyzing film.
Mm.
Um, a big thing is my mindset. I'm always thinking about that. A weird little, I guess you'd call it embarrassing thing, is like whenever I'm showering, that's my like meditation time. I use that time to just like visualize where I want to be, how I'm going to get there, how things have been going, what I can do differently. Cause that's my time where it's just me. So I think that would be what sets me apart, is the amount of time that I spend mentally thinking about things, mentally preparing for the next day. Okay, today I felt like I wasn't really moving my head that great. Tomorrow I want to be better. I want to make the guy miss at least 10 punches with my head movement. Stuff like that. I'm just constantly looking for ways to improve, constantly thinking about what I can do to be better. And I think that's what's going to help me be successful in the long run.
Do you do any goal setting?
So I did before, actually, for one of my school projects, the final project, we had to do a goal setting thing. And I obviously had to do it for the project. And I realized how beneficial it was to me. So I don't actually like write anything down, but what I do is like, I like to store things mentally up here. For me, if I set a goal for myself, I'll remember it up here. I do set goals for myself, and once I feel like I'm getting closer to them, I'll set the bar higher. So it's kind of just, I have my end goal, my long-term goal, and then I have a bunch of goals along the way as kind of milestones. And each time that I cross one of those off, it's okay, what do I have to do now to get to that next one? And it just kind of helps me stay on track of moving forward and not being stuck in the fact of, well, I don't have that success where I want to be. So I keep getting that temporary success that keeps building. And then eventually it'll get me to where I want to be.
Hmm. How important do you think? I apologize. Just got a weird thing that just came up on the screen that messed my thought up. But
You're good, man.
dude, I can't imagine. It takes a different kind of like you're, and I don't mean this in a mean way. You're wired different, man. Like it takes a special kind of person to be able to get into a ring and I don't know. You get punched in the face and you can keep going. How do you mentally deal like work through getting punched in the face, for lack of a better term? Like, what's that process like? How do you deal with like pain and struggle? That's just it's for me, somebody who's not a fighter. It amazes me how well you guys can just like take a hit and keep on going.
So I think there's two ways to analyze it. Some people physically just aren't going to be cut out for fighting. They don't have a great pain tolerance, and I don't mean that in a bad way. That's just the honest truth. Not everyone
That's
is
me.
willing
That's me.
to. That's fine. You know what? I hope no one's punching you in the face anyway. If you're not,
Yeah.
so I think there's that aspect, but then it comes down to like the metaphoric punch in the face. I kind of touched on it earlier, like growing up, some of the struggle I had with losing my dad and stuff. So for me, I've been kind of fighting with life throughout. So I've been used to kind of taking things that are much harder to face than getting punched in the face. If I can go through, losing my father and losing, my grandfather and stuff like that, like life's always going to hit you 10 times harder than any person can. And so if I can go through these obstacles, if I'm looking at another human being, like what could you physically do to me that life has not already done? So when you're in there, getting punched in the face, first of all, is not as bad as people think it is. It's more of like a fear thing. Your face actually gives like a very quick numbing reaction. So it's not really painful. It's kind of more just like a quick shock. It's more like body shots and leg shots that will, be more like debilitating and painful for people. So you do training for that. You can build your body up, get used to conditioning that. But then, like I said, the thing that's really going to set a lot of people apart is the metaphoric aspect of it. How much are you willing to take to just keep going and just to get to where you want to be? And it sounds kind of cliche, but that's really just what it comes down to. Pain is going to be temporary. It's going to go away eventually. You'll heal. That cut will heal up, that broken bone will heal up, that bruise will go away. But what you achieve in life and where you stop and where you give up, that's going to haunt you and linger with you forever. So you got to be able to just roll with the punches, man, right? You got to be able to, make a miss, and you're going to get caught eventually. And that's where you have to have that gut check and see, okay, what am I really about here? So.
Damn. Absolutely, brother.
And that's kind of a lot to throw at you, but I mean, I think that would be the best way to kind of answer that question.
No, I love it. And honestly, for me, right, selfishly, I love these. I said it in the beginning. I love talking to people where I can pull lessons from it and enjoy. Like I'm enjoying talking to you because I'm learning so much, and I really appreciate how you think, because there's things that I can do better, and I know I can be better, and I want to be better. So I ask those questions to be like, how do you do it? Because I'm really genuinely curious, and I absolutely love it. How do you? I mean, I already asked. Like, you wake up every day and you want to be better. You have that mindset,
Yep.
and you keep going and you keep getting better. How important is patience? Do you think about patience at all? And what kind of a role does that play in your day-to-day like thought process?
Patience is something I'm still learning. You can, if my coach was here, he would have been laughing the whole time because I'm going to be honest with you. I'm one of the least impatient people you can meet, especially when it comes to my training and everything like that. Like I said, I want to get it right the first time. I want to execute it to a high level the first time. And I get super, super pissed off and frustrated if I don't. And there's been training sessions where, I'm trying to work on something, I'm not getting it. And then I just get into this spiral and it's bad. And it's something that I got to work on. That's a big thing of mine is having to learn that I'm not always going to be a perfectionist. As far as execution, I can have the desire to be a perfectionist. Um, but I'm so glad that you brought up patience because that's something I'm improving on, but I still have a long ways to go. Um, but I think that, it's just something that's kind of learned over time. We kind of touched on it earlier too, and that's in all fields as well. There's going to be moments where you hit the wall and you really have to regroup and rethink, maybe re-strategize a little bit. And that's where the patience will come in. And if you truly want to be where you want to be, the patience will come along with it because it's just what's going to have to happen. I'm sure you've experienced it. And talking to you too, first of all, I want to applaud you on your mindset and ability to, be so honest with yourself and keep moving forward. I think that's a great thing. And, you seem like the type of person that I would definitely want to surround myself with because it's going to help me keep moving forward and you can feed off each other's energy. But I think you can relate to that as well. Like, I'm sure there's been times in anything you've done where you got to a certain point and you're like, okay, not quite going how I thought. Let's regroup here. That requires patience, and it's something that if you want to make it long term, it's just going to have to be a part of your experiences. So
I appreciate the kind words very much, but I mean, I agree, man. And I asked some of these questions kind of knowing based on your mindset, what you might say, because, here's the thing. When I first started my first business, I went through a whole calendar year, and I've told this story on the podcast before, but I went through a whole calendar year, right, of working, and in year end, I made $300 total net profit for a year of work. $300. I had more equipment. I'd bought things like, the business had grown, but I made $300, and I remember going through and doing the accounting and sitting down with my accountant and doing my end of year sort of tax return paperwork and everything. And I was like, man, in my head, I was thinking to myself, I was like, I'm supposed to be in the Lambo right now. I'm supposed to be in the big house on the hill right now, man. I worked a whole year. I'm a business owner. What do you mean? And I realized like, okay, no matter what, we all think it's going to probably happen sooner than it will, right? There's obviously things and times where things will happen quick, but for most people, we're accustomed to thinking that things are going to happen faster than they actually will. But
instant gratification.
100%, right? And even a 5 or 10 year goal, right? Things might not even happen in 5 or 10 years if your goals are extremely lofty, right? Yep. Which yours and mine are. So I think the thing that I've realized, and I know there's been other people that have talked about this before me. This is not a new idea, but it's about being patient in your long-term goals, but extremely impatient in your short-term goals. So your weekly, your monthly, your yearly goals, chasing them relentlessly, just being so aggressive and so fast-paced and working extremely hard while still keeping a very patient and just calculated long-term view. And that's what's worked for me.
How you broke that down. Really like how you broke that down. I haven't heard it broken down in like phrase like that. And I think that's a phenomenal way of putting it. I didn't mean to cut you off either.
No,
I'm sorry,
dude,
but
please.
That was the perfect way to say it. How I've heard it is like kind of like controlled chaos, right? Like you got to be aggressive, but it's got to be a controlled aggression. But I really like how you broke that down because I think that makes it more relatable to people across all backgrounds, desires, and whatnot. So, that's just remarkable though that you were able to take that step back, learn from that experience, and then just keep moving forward. And like you said, I kind of ask you a question. So when you saw that end of the year where you were at, did you did you kind of have to re reignite that fire in you, or did you just say, you know what, now I'm going to be kind of like you said, more aggressive in the short term stuff because it's going to get me to the long term in a more in a better path, or
Yeah,
however you want to do it.
I uh, I would say I was momentarily defeated for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to lie about that. I definitely, as a even younger than I am now, I truly thought I see it comes off as ego, but I truly believe I'm going to achieve great things, and with that
And that's
comes, I truly believe I'm going to achieve them at a rapid pace. So for me, I did have a moment of defeat where it was like, man, really $300? I worked a whole year. But then you kind of sit back and you reflect and you think like, okay, what did I achieve? Well, one, I have customers now. Two, I have equipment. I have the infrastructure. I spent a year building the infrastructure to build a lifestyle and a business on. So for me, it took me a little while. I'd be lying to say it didn't, but
Mm-hmm.
call it a couple days, call it a week, call it a month. I had some time to reflect and be like, oh, it's not just the dollars, right? The dollars is how people keep score, but when you're really looking at it, the infrastructure, the knowledge, the customers, that also has real value, and that's harder to get than just money, because you can go get a job and get money. You could get a job anywhere and make more than I made at all, anywhere.
Exactly.
So for me, I had to sit back and reflect. But once I realized that I had that infrastructure, the next year, it's like, oh, okay, well, now I can make in a day what I made in a year because I don't have the same costs. I don't have to buy all the same stuff. And then, you have a great year. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I made in a week what I made last year. And then that happens year over, you know what I mean? You have those moments where you're like, oh, it's happening. Like I'm
Yeah.
doing something here. And it's so hard, especially, like I think from what you're saying, and for me personally, I had phenomenal parents who always really told me I could do anything. And that's really where my mindset came from. So it's really, I talk to a lot of people who are trying to start their own businesses, and when they don't come from that background, they can't even imagine that they can achieve the things that they want to achieve, right? So for
Exactly.
me, I like to share this mindset and talk to people with a like-minded mindset and put this out into the world to be like, look, if you don't have that, let this be that for you. Because in all reality, there are people that had all the odds stacked against them and they achieved greatness, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason that anyone who's listening to this can't achieve their goals. And
100%.
I just truly believe that. And that's how I operate my life as well. But selfishly, I get to talk to awesome people. So at the same time, it's a win-win.
Exactly. And that's a great story, man. And, props to you for the success. And I wish nothing but the best for you with that. And I hope that you continue to grow, and, you will get to where you want to be eventually, because just a little bit of time we've talked, I can already see it from you. I can hear it. And again, that's going to be the deciding factor. So I think that's great. And I like that, you use this platform, like you said, to relay it to other people who may not have the same experiences as us and the same interest, but if they can take the same approach and apply it to their life, it'll obviously benefit them. So
Hell yeah.
that's a great story, man.
I'm fired up, man. It's a Sunday night, and I am so fired up to get into the week off this conversation. But let me ask you this, brother. Knowing what you know now,
Mhm.
and typically I end interviews on this topic, but I don't want to end this one just yet. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back and talk to a
Mhm.
young Vin, right?
Yeah.
Let's call it 10-year-old Vin going through some real hardship. What
Mhm.
would you tell 10-year-old Vin? What would you say? What do you wish you knew then?
Ooh, that's a good one. All right, let me think about that because I don't want to rush that answer.
No, please
Um,
take all the time you need.
let's see. So 10-year-old Vin,
And feel free to break
first
it
of all,
up.
I
Huh?
would tell him that, everything's going to get better. That would be the main thing. And then what I would also tell him is that this sucks now. There's going to be more bumps in the road, just so you know. Like it's hard now. It's going to keep being hard. It's not going to get easier, and you're going to have to do things at a much different way than the ordinary person. But um, I think what I would tell him is you're going to be exactly where you want to be. You're everything that you have envisioned as a child and everything that you're going to go through. There's a purpose for it. There's a reason for it. And don't let it defeat you. Use it as fuel to drive you to where you want to go. And if you can keep moving forward through all this adversity, eventually you're gonna have the outcome you're looking for, because you're gonna face all this, hardship. You're gonna face these things, and it's gonna give you more character, and it's gonna suck while you're going through it. But if you stick to who you really are, all the right things will fall in place, and you're gonna end up where you want to be. That's probably what I would say right now off the top of my head. That's probably what I would say.
I love it, brother. I love it. That's amazing. Let me change up the question a little bit and ask it another way.
Okay.
If you could go back to Vin, who was just starting to train, just realized, I'm going to be the greatest there ever was. I'm going to be a professional fighter. What would you say to him?
You're not shit yet. Because when I first started, the first day I was training, it was, when can I get my first fight? When can I fight? And my coach was like, we'll see, be patient, back to the patient thing. You got a lot to learn, and, I had some things that I did really well when I first started. And I'm not saying this to brag. I felt like I was able to remember a lot of things from when I was younger in karate, and then just physically things I was capable of doing, or what I at least thought I was doing good at the time. I was like, oh, I'll be able to handle myself. I can go in there. I can beat people up, right? And, looking back on it now, even seeing old videos, even watching my fights back, my first 5 fights, I look at them now just from this past year, and I'm like, dude, you thought in that moment, you thought you were fucking set. You thought you were the man, but Vin right now would kick Vin's last fight's ass in 10 seconds flat. And so it's just, what I would say to him is, you're not there yet. You're going to keep growing at a steady rate, and you have to stay on the right path. And you cannot let yourself think that where you're at right now is good enough, and that you can't get in that comfortable state of, I'm good enough right now. Because my goal is not to be just an amateur. My goal is not to have a couple fights. Where I want to be takes a tremendous amount of growth in not only physical skills, mental skills, and all the above. So I would tell him, you're not shit yet, and there's much more to learn. So just keep your head on right, and keep striving, and keep that hunger for learning more.
Amazing, brother. What would you say to the person who's listening to this right now, who's thinking they might want to start fighting? Where do they start? What tips do you have? What would you say to a new fighter?
So first off, where should you start? You got to just start. I think, and I kind of experienced this myself too. I think with fighting, it seems so different from other sports. Like, kids always start off, any parent would put their kid in baseball, any parent would put their kid in basketball, whatnot. Fighting, it just has this different stigma. It's kind of growing and becoming more I guess, accepted now, but you definitely have to just start. Get your foot in the door, find a gym. What to look for in a gym is a coach that is not looking to just get a paycheck from you, a coach that genuinely cares about your well-being, your performance, your outcome, and your success. I think also you have to be willing to embrace a lot of things. You have to be willing to accept that it's a different type of training that you've never experienced. It's going to take a different level of commitment if you truly want to fight. And the person that's coaching you is doing it right. It takes a different amount of commitment than you've probably ever experienced. there's going to be things, your ego, you have to learn to just get rid of that right off the bat, because everything that you think you can do, once you start experiencing it with people who have trained, you're, I'm sorry, but like the average person coming off the street, you can be as athletic as you want. There's going to be some way or form that someone who's been training is going to get the better of you. So you have to be willing to not accept defeat, because that's something I never want to tell somebody, but be willing to accept the learning experiences. Also, I think I'm trying to think of something that I really want to let them know. Like the patience, we talked about that. You have to have a lot of patience, and overall, I would probably just summarize it with commitment. I know that's kind of boring, but it's the more committed you are to it, the more you're going to get out of it. And the more you just embrace learning, the more you embrace every session being an opportunity, and every session, whether it goes good or bad, there's something you can take away from it.
Hmm.
Uh, I think those are the most important factors for someone who's looking to, just get involved in it. And if you truly want to fight, there's a different level of commitment. You can want to learn the skills and do it for fitness, and that's fine. But if you're truly looking to compete in it, then I think those are the most important things.
How complicated do you think getting good actually is? Is it I know the skills are there's very high level skills. I'm not saying that that's simple. I'm
Mhm.
saying is the actual path, if you're committed, regimented, have a good coach, is it simple? It just takes real hard work, and or is it very very complicated? Is there things that you like might not get from a mediocre coach? What's
Um, it's definitely, it definitely helps having, a good coach and having all those things. I wouldn't I don't want to say it's easy.
not
It
easy.
will.
I definitely don't want to. I don't want to say easy. I said simple. Let me phrase the question like this: in starting and growing a business, which is what I can talk about,
Mhm.
is extremely difficult. Right?
Yeah.
Getting in a ring and fighting is extremely difficult.
Mhm.
But I can tell you that the principles behind becoming successful are very simple. It's not that they're easy, they're just simple in business. Is fighting and what you do, is it the same sort of way?
Okay, I totally get what you're saying now. I think it can be.
Okay.
I think I think if you have all the tools, it'll make the job much more simple, and it can be broken down in that process if you don't get in your own way. I think that's the hardest thing. And I would imagine with business it is too, because your business is ultimately kind of like a reflection of you. So same thing with training, like it's a reflection of what you're willing to do with it. So even though it might make it more simple in that aspect, you still have to prevent your own self from being your worst enemy. I hope that makes sense. I
Yeah.
don't know. I can try and reiterate if it's not quite clear.
Perfect, bro. I apologize for asking a kind of weird question.
Oh, no, 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 not at all. I love the question. I just wanted to make sure I was,
Yeah.
giving you the correct response to what you were looking for.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I see I might have caught it on your shirt. Is that the gym that you train at?
So I do, this is Apex, Apex Training LLC. This is where I do my strength and conditioning. It's where I work, and it's also where I've been doing a lot of my wrestling and jujitsu. So Kyle Francis, he is the head owner. He is now my strength and conditioning coach. He's someone that I had met a while back. He would come and train a lot of the football athletes at CNS and CBA. So I had had a few brief encounters with him there, but then we came into contact through mutual friends, and I started training with him. And he met my coach, Bob DeSimone, who owns DeSimone's Martial Arts, and the two of them meshed really well. And so, you know, they both have a trust in one another to allow me to train at both places with the same goal in mind.
Hmm.
So that's what Apex is. That's where the strength conditioning is. That's also where I'm employed at. So that's located on out by uh, what's it called? Oh, I can't think of what it's called. The breakfast place.
So
Yeah,
you're currently I didn't even ask this. Are you currently living and based in like
yeah. So I'm actually I just got an apartment about a month ago, and so I'm
nice?
right on the corner of like um
That's
yeah
crazy because I just moved. Uh, do you know
yeah
it's like right probably right down the street from you? Or is
yeah
that
yeah yeah.
I live right there. Like
No kidding, man. What are the chances of that?
I'll probably cut this out so I don't drop my own location publicly, but that's crazy. For some reason I thought you were out of
So that's where I went to college at first.
Gotcha.
I went out there to Mercyhurst University. That was the first college I attended. And then I transferred to Brockport after my sophomore year and finished up there. And now, I moved out of my mom's house. Had to get going. I got my own place here, so it's kind of in between. So where D Simone's martial arts is, it's about 8 minutes away, and then where Apex is, where I do everything else at, it's like 20 minutes. So try to
Awesome.
find a place kind of in the middle. So
Yeah. Well, shout out to both those spots. It's a good
yeah,
plug.
100%.
Um, can you share and I kind of want to summarize maybe this podcast with this question. Can you share a moment where you felt maybe defeated or you felt like you made a major mistake and how you overcame that and what that was like for you?
So for me with fighting, I mean, I've made a million mistakes in life as it is, and I messed up a lot, man. Done a lot of dumb shit. But as far as fighting, because I think that applies to, I can kind of characterize that and everything else. My second fight. So I had my first fight on August 1st, and
What year?
that was 2019.
Cool.
So had that, won that, was happy, whatever, celebrated for a little bit, and then got a call a couple weeks later, not even, saying, hey, we have a fight this weekend. This guy's opponent pulled out. We're looking to fill a spot. Do you want in? And my coach was like, if you can run 3 miles right now in under 20 minutes, I'll let you fight. So I went out and did that, and that sounds like, oh, like it's pretty good shape, but I was not in good shape for that. Like I did it, I got the 3 miles in, went in. It was like 4 days notice on that fight, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go in, I'm just gonna knock this guy out like I did the first guy. Short notice fight. I'm just gonna go in. He's not expecting me or whatever. I'm gonna go in and beat him. And he was a veteran guy. He had more wins than I had fights. He had double digit fights. I had one. And so, I went in there, and not that I got too cocky, but that I just I didn't stay focused in between like I should have. And I ultimately ended up winning the fight, but I'll never forget my coach's reaction in between rounds and how just pissed off he was at me because I just wasn't doing what I was capable of doing, what he was telling me to do, and what I should have been doing. And for me, I won the fight, but personally, I felt defeated. I felt like, man, I really not only let myself down, I let my coaches down. All the people that came and watched me, I put on a shitty performance. I didn't do my best. The promotion, I hope they call me back because, I didn't put out my best effort. So I definitely felt defeated in that moment, regardless of winning the fight. I just knew, like, damn, like that really was not, what I should have been doing. And the reason I wanted to use that example is because I think it ties back into some of the other things we talked about, the aggressive approach to short-term goals. I got lackadaisical in that. I let my success. I had temporary success. I enjoyed it and embraced it too much. Um, and I also I I just kind of got off focused. I got the result I wanted in the first fight, and I was like, okay, I'll have a little bit of time. I can ease up, and I realized right away that that's going to get you into trouble. And so for me, that would be the best time where I felt defeated and kind of realized like, okay, in between fights, away from those in the ring moments like you talked about, is where it all really matters, because otherwise it's going to reflect in the ring like it did today. So
Boom. Brother, you dropped so many gems, but to cap this one off with turning a negative into a positive, banger episode, banger just topic, bro. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know I've said it a lot, but this has been awesome. So thank you so much.
it's been a great experience, man. This was my first time on a podcast, first time even getting to talk to you. It's been a phenomenal experience. You're one hell of a guy, man. I appreciate you having me on here. Again, best of luck with everything you're doing. I wish nothing but the best for you. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out, and I'm looking forward. Maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely, dude. I'd love to do an update when you get your first belt, your first major belt in the UFC or something like that.
Yeah, that'll definitely be an awesome experience, man. We'll definitely have to do that.
Awesome. Yo, so do you mind plug yourself? Where can people find you? How can people get connected and keep an eye on you?
Yeah, so Instagram and Twitter is V Iannuzzo MMA. You can follow me on there. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me. If you're interested in training, you can come into Apex if you're looking for, strength and conditioning training. If you're an athlete looking for sports performance, you can come and work with myself, work with Kyle, work with Emma. There's a lot of great people there, great mindset. If you're looking to learn martial arts and you're looking for a great coach to teach you the fundamentals and proper core values, Bob DeSimone at DeSimone's Martial Arts, that's the place to be. It's a small family environment, but when I tell you the depth of knowledge that's there and the willingness to help people get to where they want to be is unmatched, that's the place to be. So, again, there's the social media, there's Apex, a great place that will test you not only physically and mentally, and then DeSimone's Martial Arts. So that's where you can find me, man. That's where 95% of my days are spent, so.
Awesome, brother. Well, this has been a blast, man. You dropped so many gems. But this is it. This is free coffee with Vin.
Awesome, man.
Me, Rob Riley, Calvin McChesney, behind the edits. Brother, thank you so much. Until next time.